Hi everyone, Ashley here. So jumping right in, watching the video, I think I was a little and am still a little bit confused and not entirely sure what kind of behavior or what kind of therapy is being used here. My thoughts mostly are leaning towards the rational emotive behavior therapy, but I'll get into that in a minute. So first question is, what are the thinking and behavior goals that were established in the clip? And so the therapist first asks her, as the session is coming to an end, he asks her, so what are you going to think about this, right? Like, what are you going to remember when you leave here? So I feel like she was going to remember I imagine her ex sabotaging the relationship, not isolating herself, and then ways to feel good about being alone. I feel like that was the most important thinking goal here that she identified herself. And then he goes on to ask her about, okay, so this is what you're going to think, but now what are you going to do? What are you going to do about this? And she established that she was going to continue with her meeting and she was going to try and let him go. And that seemed a little bit unclear about what that could look like for her, but the therapist was telling her that, it was obviously a very tentative response. She didn't seem very secure in that response. He recognized that it was like the best she could do right now. And that's what she had. And that's okay. It's a starting point. So those are what I saw for the thinking and the behaving goals. And then the theory being used, for me, I think, as I said, I feel like it's the rational emotive behavior therapy because he is doing some questioning. We obviously didn't get to see the beginning of the video, or the whole session, but he is doing some questioning. So I kind of ruled out a little bit of the person-centered therapy. That could be very inaccurate. These are my thoughts. And then with the thinking and the behaving, that's where I got in with the rational emotive, because he was asking her, like, what is she thinking? And now what is she going to do about what she's thinking? So that's what suggested to me that it's rational emotive. How would I use this in my approach in my work at schools? Well, I work with elementary, and I hear a lot of this all the time, like I can't do it, or I failed, I'm such a failure, or that kind of irrational thinking. I see that happen a lot with kiddos. And I think I would use it in a sense of building self-esteem and trying to shift the irrational to rational thoughts. With these kids, and whether it's small groups, one-on-one, I could see myself using this type of therapy there, and just building that shift of perspective, or opening their eyes to a shift in perspective or a different lens, instead of having these irrational thoughts that can be so negative and detrimental, because they cause the emotional problems. I feel like that's where a lot of emotional problems arise from. So that is what I would think, how I would use it in an approach, to working with kids. And then the aspects that would be easy or difficult to implement in the school setting. I think it seems like this kind of therapy it could be challenging because of all of the other responsibilities that we have as counselors. And so there may be times where you might not necessarily get to meet with your one-on-one or your small group session as a result of a crisis or something happening at school, that you have to attend to. It could be challenging, to meet with those kids as often as you would like to. But then I also think at the same time, those types of groups are what we're going to do, or what I would do with kids anyways, building the self-esteem and kind of stuff like that, working with the kids. Um, yeah. So, and another thing I think about too when I'm talking about time and having the time to do it, I feel like this might changing perspective isn't always it doesn't always happen quick. It happens in small doses and it happens over time. And oftentimes there's regression. In my thoughts, these are just thoughts, that there's room for regression. So you might need to continuously see these kids throughout the year to work on it, or continuing throughout the years that you're working with them. And then the last question is, of the three theories discussed, which do you see being the most effective at your grade level? I would see this theory, rational emotive, being pretty effective, because I do think a lot of these kids come in with such negative thoughts and irrational thoughts, and I've heard it a lot in the past of doing behavior supports and interventions, and it's really hard to shift that mindset. But I do think that it is incredibly powerful and effective with the kids when that perception or that lens is shifted to where it's like, I don't know, they don't, where it's not like, I'm such a failure, I failed at this, so I'm a failure in life. And so I think that shifting that perspective, or that change of, I don't know. I think that would be effective overall, though, of how to open that lens to something different, of this doesn't always mean this, or I having this thought doesn't always mean that there's going to be this consequence just because of this thought. Yeah.